Right now on 10 News at 3, as candidates try to reach voters, some Knox County politicians appear to be taking aim at each other behind the scenes. What we are learning after the release of text messages between some Knox County Republicans.
And scattered showers and a few thunder showers continue to blossom in the afternoon heating. With all the moisture around, flooding would be the biggest concern on the very latest forecast coming up.
And after banning it from school libraries, Knox County is in the process of bringing the novel Roots back to where students can access it. We will hear from the school superintendent about the change in course and in this decision. Thank you for streaming 10 News at 3. I'm Robin Wilhoit. We begin, as we always do, with 3 of the day's top stories. New at 3, 2 court decisions have stalled attempts to block the newly redrawn congressional map in Tennessee. The Republican-dominated Tennessee legislature held a special session earlier this month to redistrict the state in order to strengthen the party's majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. It comes after a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision weakened minority protections under the Federal Voting Rights Act. Several groups quickly filed suit to block the use of the new map in Tennessee. One was filed at the federal level, the other at the local level in Davidson County. The federal judge denied a temporary restraining order, saying it was unlikely that case would win in court. A Davidson County chancellor ruled against plaintiffs in the other case, saying some claims were barred by sovereign immunity and some petitioners lacked standing. You can read more on the court's decision right now at WBIR.com. Supporters of a death row inmate gathered in Blount County today to urge Governor Bill Lee to take another look at the case of Gary Wayne Sutton. It is in the wake of last week's failed execution of another man on death row, Tony Carruthers. Sutton was sentenced to death for the murders of siblings Connie and Tommy Griffin. That was back in the early 1990s. His uncle, James Dellinger, was also convicted in their killings, but he died from natural causes while on death row a few years ago. The victim's family says Sutton is responsible for their deaths and is right where he belongs. Blount County's District Attorney General tells us multiple court proceedings regarding Sutton's case have all resulted in the same conclusions: his guilt, his rightful conviction, and his death sentence. His supporters stand by his innocence and are calling for the governor to remove him from death row.
We do have people that are behind us. We have representatives and some senators. I do feel like when we all come together, I just feel like the governor is going to do the right thing.
A private investigator looking into Sutton's case says someone else is responsible for the killings of Tommy Griffin and Connie Branham. She adds last week's failed execution should make us all stop and think.
It's terrifying to think that that could be Gary. I don't know Tony Carruthers' case. I've heard that he is also innocent. I can't say that. I don't know that 100%, but even if he weren't innocent, what he endured the other day was horrible, and nobody should ever endure that.
Sutton's execution date is set for December. We will hear more from reporter Libby Cunningham coming up on 10 News at 5. Well, you can also watch Libby's prior in-depth coverage of the case. You can stream the saga of Gary Wayne Sutton, Decades on Death Row, right here and also on WBIR.com. Starting in July, people will be allowed to carry alcoholic beverages outside in certain parts of downtown Knoxville. City Council voted 8-1 last night in favor of outdoor drinking areas around Covenant Health Park and Market Square. Councilmember Denzel Grant cast the one dissenting vote. He represents parts of East Knoxville and downtown. He questioned the city's consistency in relaxing alcohol regulations while strengthening smoking restrictions. You can read more on the changes right now at WBIR.com. And with that, we turn now to meteorologist Mike Simon to talk about our Wednesday went out for lunch and noticed nice sunny skies with a lot of clouds.
Yeah.
And the one notable thing, the humidity.
It is humid, I know. I was out at the zoo on Monday, and
Right.
it was just sticky because that sun, when it's beating down, we got dew points so high right now. Yeah, it feels like it is summer, even though it's not just yet. We will continue to have high humidity for a little while, but it looks like we may get a break in the long term. But in the meantime, we do have temperatures in the 80s, and it feels a little warmer. Dew point 66 earlier today, it got up to almost 70. It's dropped a little bit, 55% humidity, and our wind is out of the west at about 15. So at least we have a breeze. That helps out somewhat, and we do have some gusts that have been up around 20 miles per hour. It feels like 86 degrees, though. Here is radar, and we are tracking showers and a couple of thunderstorms that are back over the plateau, moving into the valley. We also have had a few other showers and thunder showers back over the higher terrain of the Smokies. Now, there may be some gusty wind associated with some of these, especially if you see some lightning. Some of those storms could have 30 to 40 mile an hour wind, but the primary concern with any of these would be some localized flooding because the ground is already very saturated. Over the past 7 days, we've had quite a bit of rain across the area, and now we're getting more, stretching all the way down 27. That's moving toward Paint Rock. Harriman just got out of it. Oak Ridge just beginning, and it'll be to Lenore City and Farragut and Carnes very soon. And we'll continue to track those showers and thunder showers. Temperatures are generally in the 80s, but at times it feels a lot hotter. 88 in Maynardville, even though it's 84 degrees. 84 degrees is what it feels like in Spring City, even though the temperatures are still in the 70s. Pigeon Forge feels like 92 degrees. Well, forecast lows getting down the 60s tonight. Muggy meter does show that we do get a break in the long term, but that's not until Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday of next week. So here's your 7-day forecast for you. It is pretty nice, at least in the long term, but we're going to have that umbrella for several days here to come until the back half of the weekend. Conditions do improve a little bit, and temperatures come down below average for change.
Yeah, for change is right. And believe you me, my umbrella has been a constant companion of late.
Oh yeah, it's necessary. One other thing to note, we are actually in the positive direction right now for the month, and it comes to rain. I know what happened.
Well, let's celebrate. All right, Mike, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Well, there appears to be a rift among Knox County Republicans that came to light last week with the release of text messages. The back and forth between the head of the Knox County Republican Party and members of County Commission reflects that tension. 10 News reporter Ellis is covering this story today. I spoke with her earlier after she met with a longtime Republican in Knoxville to discuss the testy exchange and the divide locally within the party. Ellis, thanks for taking time to jump in here and talk to us about this story that you're working on. This really all started with a chain of text messages, beginning with that message from Knox County Party Chair Martin Daniel. You've got those in front of you. Walk us through some of them.
Yeah, so we obtained text messages from this group chat. Like you mentioned, Martin Daniel, chair of the Republican Party, he sends a group text to several Knox County commissioners, Republican Knox County commissioners, essentially saying that he has heard that some of them may be publicly advocating for a Democratic candidate for county commission. He goes on to say that he was elected in part to ensure party unity. He essentially says that he advises them, and I'll just read this word for word.
Yeah.
I respectfully advise you that if any Republican Knox County commissioner publicly endorses or otherwise publicly advocates for the election of a Democrat candidate for any Knox County elected office, I will personally move to publicly censure that commissioner. He goes on to say that he is confident that endorsing a Democratic candidate, that the commissioner that endorsed them, their political life in Knox County could come to an end.
So essentially he's saying you better fall in lockstep with the Republican way.
Right.
You do not need to veer off. Well, that faced some pushback from some Knox County commissioners that
Absolutely.
we see in the text messages.
Yes, so several commissioners responded. Larson J. responding, nothing like starting your day by being threatened. Martin, party unity doesn't come from instilling a level of fear and retribution. let's see, I'm going to move through here and scroll.
And as you're saying that, just Larson J. will make this note, was running as a Republican in the primary for Knox County mayor, lost the primary. So this was the discussion after the fact.
Yes, exactly. Angela Russell saying, Martin, thank you for your leadership. Not every candidate I wanted won in the primary, yet I will support them in the general. So that was a little bit different perspective, right? Let's see here. Terry Hill saying, Martin, when a person hears again and again and again that they are no longer a real Republican because they aren't as far right as they should be, it's difficult to continue to claim a party that doesn't want you anymore. So it's a level of infighting within the commission because they're being told essentially to fall in line, and some are saying we don't want to, and then some are saying, yes, if you're a Republican, you should support Republicans. So
there is definitely some tension there. For the story that you are working on today that will be coming up later on 10 News, you wanted to get perspective, and you spoke to someone who was able to provide you his perspective. Who is that?
Yes. I spoke with Victor Ashe, who was a mayor, or the mayor for more than 20 years.
Yes,
we often go to him for questions about just perspective on Knoxville politics. He's been in this town for so long. He knows everyone.
Longtime Republican.
Exactly. And so he was interesting to talk to about how the party has changed over the last 20 or so years.
Well, was he surprised by this back and forth within the Republican Party?
He said he was not surprised, but that he thinks it's to the detriment of the county and the party. He says, essentially, as a voter, he would want to elect people that can think for themselves, that aren't just falling in line with, say, President Trump. Even if you support President Trump, he was saying, I want a lawmaker who has their own opinions, and they might prefer one candidate or one policy over the other, even if their colleagues that are on the same side of the aisle have a different opinion. That was really his message, that there needs to be different opinions even within the same party, and there needs to be conversations about that are open.
That is his message. Has he shared that message personally with any of the people maybe involved in this, or did he indicate
that? I'm
not
sure. He didn't say. But I know he is very well connected, and he definitely has some strong thoughts on why he thinks this is negative, right? He thinks it's not productive, and that county commissioners need to be working together, and that voters should be able to choose. There's always going to be a more conservative candidate or a more moderate Republican candidate. It's a spectrum, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And people are going to have different views.
Exactly. And just a backstory to this, of course, this whole issue of being a bona fide Republican or Democrat, that we visited this back leading up to the primary when Knox County Commissioner Courtney Durrett, a Democrat, posted on social media that she was actually going to be voting in the Republican primary. That really got some feathers ruffled. Yes. So there's this push for being, quote unquote, bona fide as far as in a party. So so the message then that former Mayor Ashe is sharing not only with lawmakers, but with voters. Vote your conscience.
Yep. And really that it's okay. I think his main thing was, things have gotten so polarized. We are seeing more and more that both parties kind of have a set list of what they talk about, right? Their agenda, their main points. And he said, really things, they're a spectrum. And voters have that. Some voters might be a more moderate Republican or a more moderate liberal, right? Democrat. And so that's going to be reflected in the people that you vote into office as well, and he supports that.
Did he talk about the tone of some of these text messages, and tone beyond the text messages, is tone that people are putting out there, whether it be from Democrats or Republicans, vitriolic in many respects?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to his point about just how polarized things are, that we can see this text message. And again, it's interesting. He was like, I'm surprised that this was exchanged on their phones that, of course, is public record, so we can get access to it as journalists. But it's a very tense conversation between colleagues that work together very often, and it's interesting to kind of see that.
Has there been any follow-up? Have you been able to reach out, or are you planning to reach out to the lawmakers who were part of these text conversations to get their response?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they have to say and what their reaction is to our story, because it does beg the question. You know, I think even in Knox County, we know some politicians might be, again, more conservative than others, or more liberal than others. And actually, Victor Ashe brought up an interesting point that he prefers the Knoxville city elections because they're nonpartisan. And while you might know what party someone belongs to, it kind of, you're able to cross the aisle a little bit more.
Yeah, he clearly seems to think it makes a difference if you have an R or a D.
Right.
Outside of your name.
Right.
So that's an interesting point. So that's what we can look forward to today, talking to
5 and 6.
Victor Ashe, getting his perspective on what is playing out in text messages and beyond within Knox County Republican Party. All right. As always, Ellis, we appreciate you very much. We'll be looking for your stories today at 5 and 6.
Thank you.
When we come back, 10 News reporter Olivia Dague joining us after she met up with the Knox County School Superintendent. This after the removal of the historic novel Roots from school libraries. He explains why the district has reversed course, now returning that book to school shelves. That's coming up. Stay with us. Well, Knox County school libraries are in the process of returning the classic novel Roots to school library shelves. It comes after weeks of backlash once that book was pulled on the grounds it violated Tennessee's Age-Appropriate Materials Act. Now, yesterday, Knox County School Superintendent John Reiswick announced the book will be returning to school libraries. With that, we turn to 10 News reporter Olivia Dague, who spent the morning talking with Mr. Reiswick about this reverse in course. Why did he make the decision to bring it back to school shelves?
So he said this decision really weighed on him heavily because of the significance of the book. He says that can't be understated, how important the book is, not just to our region, but to the country, to the nation, and also just the cultural significance that it had. He says he can't take any of that into account when deciding whether or not to keep the book on or off the shelves, because Tennessee law doesn't allow you to take that into consideration, which a lot of people are poking holes in, and I think Catherine Bike was one of them. Yesterday you spoke with her.
School board member.
Yes, school board member Catherine Bike, because there are lots of people pushing back and that said, well, we should consider the broader picture and implications of the book. I also did get some clarity of what the law means, because just because this book was not allowed to be in school library shelves, it could be in individual classroom libraries, and it can be taught in curriculum as well. Because we see on these banned book lists, I've been covering this story now for years, classic titles are on these banned books lists. Slaughterhouse-Five, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. The list goes on and on. Some of the names are escaping me. To Kill a Mockingbird has been on the list before. So Clockwork Orange, yes. And so the district says that they cannot look at the book in a holistic way, so they can just base removing a book just on one passage, and that's what happened with Roots. There was a rape scene in one of the chapters, and that got flagged for what's they determined was sadomasochistic abuse.
So yes, the district saying we have these parameters that we have to fall in line with. That is the reason why, in the case of Roots, it was pulled from shelves. He then felt compelled, because of the significance of this work, to bring it back. In talking with Catherine Bike yesterday, her thought was, you know, we have to look at it in a broader sense. And she says it needs to go back to the state legislature for clarity. This law needs more clarity, because there appears to be vagueness. Did the superintendent express any concern about that, or is he once again holding to this is what we have to base it on with this particular law?
So what he said was he gave credit to a lot of different folks. He's given credit to the significance of the book. He's given credit to the people on the district review committee and the librarians that have flagged the book, because they've been working hard to make sure that they're in compliance for the law. But he also gave credit to lawmakers, because he said, you know, he really feels like he knows a lot of them. They're trying to do the right thing. This is just this is tricky. So he doesn't necessarily, in my conversations with him in the past, touch on politics.
Yes. I think that's going to be something that we're going to watch play out, depending upon who continues to push it.
He's very by the book, by the law.
Understandably. Did he mention any other books that have been banned that he would consider looking at in a broader context?
So I asked him, I said, I felt like another book that's on this list that could have some of the same arguments that Roots does is from famous author Toni Morrison, a book called The Bluest Eye, which also has themes of race and historical context. I asked him, are you going to consider looking at that book? And he said he does not have plans to go through the list of around 100 titles that Knox County Schools has pulled and go through them one by one and determine whether or not they're allowed to be on the list or not. He does, however, say that he feels like he told me there's 750,000 books in the Knox County Schools library.
Okay.
They have a tougher challenge than some other school districts that might have smaller collections. He feels like librarians over the last 2 years have done a pretty good job of picking out some of the titles, and he feels like they're ready to sunset the process of constantly coming up with lists and going through them, and it'll go just to strictly a review process, because that's the other way that books can get removed from shelves, is they can be challenged. And we've seen that play out across the nation, really, is groups challenging specific books. And that process will still remain. That's part of the law. But as far as librarians separately taking books and removing them, he says that he feels like that process has pretty much run its course.
Well, you will have much more of your conversation with Superintendent Raiswick coming up later today on 10 News. Olivia, as always, thank you very much. You can watch our conversation with Knox County School Board member Catherine Bike on this same discussion. It's on our streaming platform. She and I talked in depth about age-appropriate materials, the law, and what the school board can do and what it cannot do. That streaming right now. And you are streaming 10 News at 3 right here on WBIR. Lots of excitement for Tennessee softball and baseball, men's in the regionals. Lady Vols heading to the Women's College World Series. 10 Sports' Emilie Rae Cochrane will join us right after this. Stay with us. Here to wrap us up today, Emilie Rae Cochrane to get us caught up on the Tennessee baseball and softball teams. They are both doing quite well. They are in some pretty intense play right now. Let's start with softball.
Yeah, softball. It's crazy. They're in Oklahoma City for the second consecutive year. This is their 10th trip to a Women's College World Series. They got to play Texas first, which will be interesting because Texas was the same team that knocked them out of the Women's College World Series last year. So it's going to be a heated rivalry for sure, obviously, with Texas in the SEC. So it's going to be a good one. Tennessee's definitely going to need to ramp things up against the Longhorns.
Playing in OKC, right?
Yep,
All right. Now let's go on to the guys. Tennessee baseball. They're in regional play right now.
Yeah, so regional starts on Friday. This is their 7th consecutive regional. So Josh Elander's first as a head coach in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So they're going to
Heels and UT.
Yeah, they're going to have to beat the Tar Heels in that one. So they weren't able to do it their last trip to Chapel Hill. That was in 2019.
Right.
So we'll see if they can do it and make a 6th consecutive super regional.
Okay, I'm extra invested in that one then.
It'll be a good one.
All right, Emilie, thank you as always. We'll see you later on 10 News. And that is going to do it for us. Thank you for streaming 10 News at 3 right here on WBIR. We'll be back at 4 with 10 About Town. Have a great afternoon.